Death by cop is not the picture-perfect ending I imagined. I lay here surrounded by news photographers, who shamelessly snap photos as I bleed to death on the steps of the city bank. Looking down, I watch as my blood bubbles out of the multiple bullet holes scattered across my torso. It is not a glamorous death, but I've seen worse deaths. You know, I'm no doctor, but I'm pretty sure my lungs have collapsed. I nearly drowned once as a kid, and right now it feels like I'm drowning on copper-flavored thick water. Oh wait, that's my blood. It's almost pretty, you know? How my blood is flowing down the boring, gray bank steps. Abstract art. I think I finally understand it. I chuckle. Blood spits from my mouth as I do. The metallic taste of it reminds me I'm dying, which is rather somber. A large paramedic stands over me. Real ugly son of a bitch. His jaw looks like it was reconstructed several times. Acne scars stain his cheeks and chin. His teeth are sharp, jagged, and black. And his eyes. Horseshit brown. Poor bastard must have had siblings for parents. He looked like God threw his DNA in a blender and pressed grind. I laugh again at the thought, which makes me cough in pain. The forceful coughing splatters my blood all over the ugly paramedic. I laugh louder. The last thing I remember from Earth is that ugly motherfucker's smile disintegrating, as my blood dripped off his deformed chin. So, here I am, at the gates of heaven, awaiting my fate. To say that I'm surprised I'm not burning in hell right now is a huge understatement. On Earth, I was not exactly a law-abiding citizen. I prefer law-avoiding citizen, thank you very much. Hell, I died fleeing a bank robbery that I initiated. I would have gotten off scot-free if that security guard didn't try to play hero. One bullet to the head and playing hero was the last game that guard ever played. He's not the first person I've killed either. I've got quite the rap. My first kill was as a kid. But no one wants to hear that garbage. I got a tattoo for every human life I've taken. 6, to be exact. A few civilians that looked at me wrong. Once I took a knife to a guy who resisted me stealing his car. Stupid. He deserved it. I don't feel bad about the lives I took. None of them. Regrets are for suckers. I know my choices might not have been ethical to those who have ethics. I'm not that guy. Still, finding myself outside these here holy gates does bring me some intrigue. If they keep me waiting much longer, I'll have to start a commotion. Can't stand waiting. Especially with this old lady in front of me muttering nonsense about seeing her burning again after all these years. Give me a break. Corey Hector Terreri? A babe in a white robe called angelic-like. That's me, sweetheart, I assert while shoving the old lady in front of me to the side. She falls to the floor, bouncing a little. Another laugh leaves my lips as I watch her stare around wide-eyed in surprise. Striding forward, I flash this babe my best grin. She frowns, but I'm sure that's just her being coy. Reaching up, I slick back my thick black hair with the palms of my calloused hands, giving her a view of my bulging biceps. You beckoned? I'm here, darling. I tease with a wink. Babe turned on her heel without another word. Bitch is playing hard to get, I think to myself as she leads me into a private room. Oh, honey, aren't you going to buy me dinner first? I muse. Her lips tighten into a stern, pinched smile. This is the judging room, Corey. Here it will be decided where you go next. I could listen to this babe talk all day, I think to myself as she goes on and on about something this and something that. Her curves were cut by God himself, I just knew it. All the ugly that paramedic had was because this babe got all the pretty. Damn, you're fine, I blurt out. An unimpressed expression crosses her lips, which annoys me. Even the women in heaven play hard to get. I hate that. A thank you would be nice, kitten, I assert. Without prompt, she lunges forward and grips my neck with her ice-cold hand. The icy grip catches me off guard. I imagined her touch to be a warm one. I expected her to be warm. She leans in real close and whispers, "Every entity you've ever wronged will be deciding your fate." White room. I swallow hard. A sensation fills my body. An emotion I've not felt since childhood. Fear. The chill of her hand turns hot without warning. I feel my skin begin to boil and peel. The pain is agonizing. A smirk pulls at the corner of her mouth when my skin crackles aloud. Releasing me, she steps back with a laugh. Rage fills me and I lunge forward towards the bitch. She snaps her fingers and she's gone. My momentum carries me forward and I fall into a mirrored wall I hadn't noticed before. Fuck that bitch! I scream. My screams echo in the empty room while I examine the blistering handprint painting my neck. Pus and blood spit from my wounds, painting the mirror with splatter. With shaky hands, my fingers examine the damage. The softest graze of my digits on the wound makes me recoil. The burn is so intense it makes me want to fall to my knees. Each inhale makes me lightheaded. This is worse than the time I was knifed in the stomach during my stint in juvie. The room is empty aside from this mirror. Everything is so white it's blinding. I wipe the pain-fueled tears from my eyes, which is when I notice black specks twitching in the handprint singed into my neck. The fuck? I mutter while stepping closer to the mirror. My eyes narrow on the black specks, trying to identify them. Each movement of the specks across my neck intensifies the pain. More black specks appear. My eyes widen with disbelief as speck after speck crawls out of my wound. A realization dawns on me as I feel the specks tunneling out of my exposed veins. The burn has been colonized by ants. A real manly-like scream leaves my lips as the ants bite at my exposed flesh, feeding on me. My hands slap them away, which brings me to my knees in pain. Each time I touch my neck, my entire body shudders in agony. My blisters leak as ants feast on me. They flow down the length of my neck in a river of blood and pus. Some ants crawl up my face into my nostrils, eyes, and ears. It's too much, even for a tough guy like me. Surrendering to the assault, I fall to the floor and effortlessly slap the ants away. They're multiplying too fast. It hurts to swat them away. It hurts when they bite. I twitch on the floor, my hands balled into fists. I try not to scream now. Too many ants have filled my mouth. I can taste the pus on their bodies. I roll over and vomit blood, ants, and stomach acid all over the pristine white floor. Make it stop, I plead. The room turns dark, only to be illuminated by the heat of the sun. The glass ceiling magnifying the intensity of the burn. Immediately, my skin begins to redden. The ants panic and the biting increases. The ants run for cover, filling all of my orifices. Have you ever gagged on ants before? Not ideal. I can hardly breathe as so many ants are in my nostrils and throat. The heat from above burns hotter. Slowly, I'm being cooked. The same way I used to cook ants as a kid. The realization is a slap to the face, I tell you. I'm being punished for killing ants as a little bastard kid? Stupid. My entire body is covered with third-degree burns. I can smell myself baking, feel myself being eaten. Frothing from the mouth in pain, my eyes roll back. Every muscle in my being begins to twitch uncontrollably. A puddle of melted flesh forms beneath me. I attempt to roll onto my back, but am glued in place by my own skin. That's the last thing I remember before waking up in the Red Room. Red Room. A gasp for air pulls me awake. I expect to feel a flood of pain any second now, but no pain comes. Sitting up straight, I look down at my body and see my normal pink flesh. I grip my neck with my large hands, and the angelic bitch's handprint is no longer there. Panicking, I stick a finger up my nose in search of ants. None. I spit on the floor beside me, and again there are no ants. I sigh loudly with relief at the realization that I am now safe. Safe from the ants biting my flesh and penetrating my body. Safe from the burning scent of myself cooking. I should feel relieved at these revelations, but my heart is pounding in my chest. The panic of not knowing if there are ants still inside me has me in a craze. Standing up on shaky legs, I wander the seemingly empty room. It is a perfect circle with no visible ceiling. It's dark looking up. Eerily dark. The red walls remind me of the burns that covered my body in the white room. I shudder and close my eyes tightly, trying to block the memory of pain from my mind. I was safe now.
Safe?
A mocking voice echoes my private thought aloud.
Corey Hector Terreri, you are a fool if you think you are safe.
I recognize the voice by the condescending tone. Hello, grandmother, I growl through gritted teeth. A little background here. My grandmother was a tough old broad. Cruel as she was tall, I tell ya. She was a biker chick in her heyday. She ran the clubhouse with violence. No one disrespected grandmother, and no one dared to cheat her of her valuables. Well, no one but me, that is. I cheated that old biddy any chance I could. Tank Terreri is what they called her, Tank for short. Tank would leave stacks of cash all over the clubhouse table. She knew exactly how much money was there. Each day, the stack would get bigger and bigger. See, Tank wanted to test the loyalty of the people who worked for her. So each day, the kitchen table got swallowed with piles of bills, to the point the table legs started to buckle. No one touched Tank's money after the first guy attempted to rob her. That poor bastard ended up with broken femurs, collarbones, missing fingers, and the title of Bikehouse Gimp until the day he died of internal organ failure. Did that scare me? Nope. I wanted a new lease on life, and Tank's cash stack was my way out. So one night, I did what any loving grandson would do. I drugged Tank with sleeping pills. Slipped them right into her evening tea. Then, when she passed out, I slit her throat. I squatted beside her bed and watched her gasp her last breath, smiling as she drifted into forever sleep. She died giving me the bird. Classy, Tank. Very classy. After she died, I went downstairs and told the bikers that Tank wanted me to move all the money. I told them Tank expected a police raid to be coming soon, and she didn't want her precious money seized. Those dumb fucks helped me pack up all the cash into duffel bags. They even loaded it into a club SUV for me. They waved me off under the impression I was transporting Tank's cash to another hideout. Morons. I split with that cash as soon as my taillights were out of sight. It was hilarious watching them shrink in the rearview mirror as I drove off with all their hard-earned money. Are you done reminiscing on your betrayal, Corey? Tank's voice asked bluntly. Listen, grandmother. You had it coming. If it wasn't me, it would have been somebody else. You should be happy family was the one who sent you to your maker, I retorted, matter of fact. A chill filled the room, making me hug myself tightly for warmth. Do you remember what happens to little boys who misbehave, Corey? Her voice cut through my ears like a blade. Talk about twisted. This broad used to lock me in the deep freezer, but only after she hosed me down out back. I would pound on the roof of the freezer until my knuckles were bruised and raw. The door wouldn't budge, and I'd have to accept my fate. I would hug myself tightly in the freezer as the hose water began to freeze all around me. My wet clothes and hair were the first to form icicles. It felt like hours in that freezer. Sometimes I would be laying on top of a body she was waiting to dismember. Some poor fucker that wronged her. So, there was little me laying atop of a dead body, freezing to death in my grandmother's deep freeze. She eventually let me out and sent me to my room in the attic, where I'd spend the next few days recovering from frostbite with little to no food. Like I said, no one wronged Tank Terreri. I thought maybe it was my imagination that the red room was getting significantly colder, until I could see my own exhales in the frosty air. I should have never let you out of the freezer, Corey, she hissed. Don't do this, Tank, I pleaded, but it was too late. The red walls began to shift, revealing the white walls of grandmother's freezer. The circle room began to close in around me. Immediately, I began to sweat with claustrophobia. The air got colder so fast it was hard to adjust. A loud clunk sounded from above like creaky pipes, before a rainstorm of cold hose water began to rain over me. The walls were so close to me I was forced into a standing upright position. They were so cold it felt like my skin was getting burned every time my skin grazed against the walls. Icicles began to form all over my body. The hose water began to fill the cylinder I was now stuck in. It hurt. The cold hurt. I could no longer move at all. The walls closed so tightly around me it was difficult to breathe. The water was up to my knees. Ice chunks were floating around beneath me. Grandmother, enough! I pleaded, knowing that she was no longer listening. From above, the door was closing. A circular ceiling was being lowered over my head, stopping only when it was firmly pressed down on the top of my scalp. The fear I felt as a child was so prominent now. I was going to die in this cylinder coffin, frozen and wet. My teeth were chattering so hard it felt like they may break and ruin my handsome smile. I could no longer feel my legs as the cold water reached my thighs. I inhaled sharply as the water level rose to my crotch, sending a wave of displeasure shooting through my being. "You're a cruel bitch, Tank." I shivered as my body began to feel nothing at all. The numbness came so fast, sleep was fast approaching. The water stopped rising when it reached my hips. The walls began to open, giving me more space. I sighed in relief. The relief was replaced with panic when the bodies of my grandmother's enemies began to float to the surface. They were frozen solid, yet somehow alive. Their ice-cold hands began grabbing at me, their fists pulling me below the water. I tried fighting them, but was frozen in place like a statue. Water began filling my lungs, the last bit of warmth left in me surrendering to the cold. Pain was all my brain recognized now. So much pain. The hands pulled me down to the bottom of the cylinder, and that is where Tank was waiting for me. A wretched smile spread across her face as she approached me.
"You stole from me, you little shit,"
she growled. The frozen men held me tightly as grandmother slit my throat. Blue room. A bright flash of blue pulled me awake. "The fuck?" I asked aloud while staring up at a disturbingly vibrant light. Sucking in air, I attempted to reach up to inspect the slit grandmother and her frozen goons had left on my neck, only to find my movements restricted. Claustrophobia set in again, and I felt hot with panic. On the plus side, I no longer felt cold or wet. I flexed my biceps and triceps, trying to fight the straps holding me down. And it was then that I realized that my torso and legs were also pinned by thick leather straps.
"Welcome to the Blue Room, Corey,"
a mysterious voice cooed.
"How are you enjoying your stay?"
he asked mockingly. "Unstrap me and ask me again, you fuck," I growled back. How am I enjoying my stay? What a cuck to ask me something like that when I'm strapped down against my will.
No. I think I like you secured to the gurney, Corey. I won't be unstrapping you anytime soon,"
the mysterious voice responded. I look towards the sound of the voice. I see a man with a blood-soaked shirt emerge from the shadowed corner of the bright blue room. The first thing I notice is a knife protruding from his stomach. I recognize the knife immediately. It was my Damascus steel hunting Bowie knife, 12 inches in length with a custom handle. I stole it during a bar fight. It was one of my favorite possessions. Well, it was before I had to leave it at the scene of a crime. See, I was relieving a car from this schmuck, and he resisted. What else was I supposed to do? I needed a car, and this guy had one. So I stabbed him in the stomach with my Bowie. Deserved it, really. It's not my fault the guy bled out and died on the scene. Shitty part about it? Before I even made it out of the county, the damn car ran out of gas. I set it ablaze in a conservation field before splitting on foot. It was nice to see my knife again. Brought back a lot of memories. The man saw me staring at the knife and interrupted my reminiscing.
"Last time we met, you buried this knife in my abdomen."
He smiled at me and then started a boring dialogue.
"You see, before you stabbed me and stole my car, I was a successful surgeon. I dedicated my life to healing others. The day you murdered me, I was on my way to the hospital to watch my wife deliver our first child. A little girl I never met thanks to you. I bet you can imagine how upset this made me, as I laid in the middle of the road bleeding to death."
He paused to secure a strap across my forehead, securing my head down to the gurney, which forced me to stare up at the blue ceiling. "I bet she grew up to be a real beauty, Doc," I retorted with a wink. The doctor put his finger to my lips and shushed me. He leaned in real close to my ear, whispering,
"If you don't stay quiet, I will be forced to suture your mouth shut. You took my life from me, Corey, and I am going to enjoy showing you how much pain that caused me."
the doc said. Then the psycho wrapped his hand around the handle of the Bowie knife embedded in his gut and slowly pulled it out inch by inch. Weird that not a single drop of blood was on that shimmering steel blade. With a sigh, he inspected the blade up close. With dead eyes, the doc walked out of my eye line. He clinked the steel blade against my bare foot. I flinched as he began to slice the inseam of my worn Levi's jeans with precision. The doc began to remove my jeans with ease, followed by the slicing and removal of my shirt. The bastard left me laying on the gurney in nothing but my boxers. Whoa now, Doc, let's discuss this. You know I don't swing that way. It's a compliment, you got a nice grill and all, but I'm just not interested. I mused with a chuckle, trying to lighten the mood. Ignoring me, the doc dragged the tip of the knife along the inside of my bare thigh toward my low-hanging fruit, making me swallow hard. This doc is armed with a blade, has a thirst for vengeance, and I am immobilized. I decide it's best to stay quiet. The sharp blade cut through the fabric of my boxers, revealing my naked flesh and leaving me completely exposed and vulnerable. I shiver with fear as he taps the steel blade against the metal gurney menacingly.
Don't worry, Corey. Nothing to be ashamed of. It was a little chilly in the last room.
He laughs to himself while dragging the tip of the knife across my bare pelvic bones. Fuck you, Doc. I'm twice the man you are. If you gave me the car like I demanded, you'd be alive watching your daughter grow up. Instead, you're holding a grudge against me for your own stupidity. Again, the doc raised his finger to his lips, reminding me to be quiet. Without any warning, the doc raised the Bowie knife high in the air and slammed it deep into my abdomen. A real manly-like cry left my mouth as the pain flooded my brain. I've been stabbed before, no big deal, really, but for some reason this hurt more than usual. There was a burning sensation paired with the stabbing pulse of the needle. The doc's mouth pulled up into a small smile.
Acid,
he answered without needing to be asked. With one strong pull, the knife emerged from my abdomen, dripping with crimson-red blood.
You are one sick fuck, Doc.
I grimaced through grinding teeth.
No, Corey. That would be you.
He spat back at me.
When you left me for dead in the middle of the street, I had everything to lose. You had no one. Everyone who ever tried to care about you, you managed to kill, rob, or cheat. You did not deserve life more than me.
The doctor slammed the Bowie back into my abdomen on the opposite side of my belly button. This time he covered my mouth with the palms of his free hand to stifle my scream. The doc pressed down into my face with his full force as he twisted the knife into my abdomen with his other hand. He continued moving the knife, slicing at my muscles and organs with the acid-soaked blade. I could feel the acid eating me, and suddenly I missed the ants. I flexed and struggled against the leather straps, attempting to relieve the burning igniting my insides.
You know, Corey, stabbing someone in the abdomen has a high survival rate. It doesn't necessarily mean death. But you stabbed me right in the stomach. You twisted the blade inside me. You held me close to you and stared me in the eye while the stomach acid spilled out over my insides. It burned, Corey. The acid burned so much. You dropped me to the pavement like a heap of trash. Drove off in my car and left me to die. Do you even care about the repercussions of your actions at all? The doc asked while yanking the Bowie out of my stomach. He stepped away from the gurney and stared down at me, waiting for an answer. I winced as the acid chewed through my raw flesh before mustering a response. Regrets are for suckers, Doc. You should just give me what I wanted. I sneered through gritted teeth as the acid continued to sear my insides. The doctor sighed a deep exhale, like my answer disappointed him or something. One thing I couldn't understand as I lay there dying was why the stab wound burned so intensely, Corey. It was only after I died that I discovered that you had stupidly decided to dip the blade in battery acid to clean off the blood from your last victim. When you stabbed the knife into me, it burned my insides with corrosive battery acid. The stab wound itself, I could have survived. But the battery acid coating my sliced insides, I boiled from the inside out. Like I said, Doc, could have all been avoided if you just gave me the car when I asked. With a deep frown, the doc bent down out of sight. He began fumbling under the gurney,
Only a moment passed before he was standing over me with a syringe full of colorless liquid. He hovered the syringe over my stab wound to the left of my belly button, and slowly released one drop of the colorless liquid into the wound. I swear it sizzled when the drop impacted with my exposed flesh. I yelled and squirmed against the gurney, using all my muscles to try to break free of the leather straps. "Fuck you, Doc," is all I managed before another drop fell from the syringe. I winced in agony as the liquid flowed through my exposed stab wound. The doc moved his hand to hover over my second stab wound, and let several drops of the liquid fall from the syringe. Have you ever smelled yourself burning? It's gross. Bile filled my throat. I needed this torture to end.
Battery acid is incredibly painful, isn't it, Corey?
The doc asked, expressionless. The pain was too much. A cold sweat covered my skin, and the bright blue ceiling began to fade to dark.
Corey. Not yet.
The doc said as he waved smelling salts under my nose to prolong my agony. For what felt like hours, the doc continued to drip battery acid into my 2 stab wounds. When I would pass out, he would force smelling salts under my nose. I laid there constrained, burning alive from the inside, my own flesh corroding as the acid trickled through my abdomen. The pain was horrendous. What made it worse was the doc spent the whole time narrating what his life would have been like if it hadn't been for me stabbing him. Like, get over it, am I right? The last thing I remember of the blue room is the doctor sobbing in the corner like a baby, as my naked body convulsed and collapsed onto the table, burnt from the inside out. Judge's room.
He has been through the 3 rooms and isn't showing any sign of remorse. I say we send him to the final room now for the last test.
The procedure is 5 rooms and then the final room. You know that.
This is not some standard test subject. At room 2, most test subjects ask for forgiveness to some degree. Corey has shown us no signs that he will ask for forgiveness. In his own words, regrets are for suckers. We are wasting valuable time. Fast track him to the final room.
But it is not procedure.
He has chosen death 3 times now, enduring the pain and torture instead of choosing to repent for his sins. Enough arguing. Judge 2, what are the next 2 rooms?
In the 4th room, Corey will be met by 2 men whom he killed in a bar fight. The same men he stole the Bowie knife from and that killed the doctor. The 2 men will beat Corey with smoldering hot brass knuckles that will brand him with the word repent over and over until he dies or repents. In the 5th room, Corey will be tested by the security guard whom he shot point blank, execution style of a bank robbery. Corey will be forced to play Russian roulette with the same gun. Each time the bullet fails to shoot Corey dead, Corey will be asked to repent. Each time he refuses, he will be submerged in a bath of boiling water until he perishes from either the burns or the bullet if he does not repent.
Why waste our time with this Corey Hector Terreri? I say we push forward to the final room. When he fails, we can be rid of his treacherous soul.
The procedure says,
we will proceed to the final room. We have given Corey enough opportunities to choose remorse. A life of sins, in addition to his lack of thirst for forgiveness, is enough to bypass the procedures, according to subsection 4E28E6. Please prepare Corey Hector Terreri for the final testing room. He will be bypassing rooms 4 and 5 for the sake of saving his damn soul.
Oh good. I'm back, I think to myself as I sit upright on the cold dirt ground. The last few death experiences were enough for me. I was ready to finish this so-called judgment process that hot babe in the white robe told me about. I wonder if I was passing. I was never really that hot in school. Well, I was hot, just not the most brains. Looking around, I noticed this room doesn't feel like the others. It's all tranquil-like. A forest. I can hear animals in the woods. Birds singing. Frogs croaking. Is this heaven? I ask aloud. No one answers. Standing up, I take in my surroundings. I'm fully dressed in the same clothes the doc cut off of me, but they're back to the way they were before the blue room. It is weird. After each room, all my injuries heal and I start fresh in the next room. Almost like a video game restart after the character dies. Dusting off my jeans, I stretch and decide it's best to start making my way to the nearest road. It was almost nightfall, and I didn't want to be in the woods after dark. There was something eerie about the woods after dark, you know? Especially for a city guy like me. After venturing a few yards into the woods, the smell of campfire greeted me like an old memory. It was warm and inviting, so I thought it best to head out in that direction. Campfires meant people, and people meant my ticket out of here. The trouble was, the smell of that campfire was coming from every direction. How many damn people were in this forest, I thought to myself. A thick smoke began to cover the ground as I chased down these mystery campfires. As the smoke grew thicker around my feet, the animals in the forest began to panic. Spiders from the forest floor began crawling up my legs to escape the smoke. I tried slapping them off, but there were so many. I broke into a run, covering my face with my shirt to limit the smoke entering my lungs. A wall of bright hot fire stopped me in my tracks. I turned to the left and ran a few feet before a burning tree fell across my path. Turning again to the left, I saw a herd of wild animals running for their lives through a burning forest. Everything was engulfed in flames. A large bear nearly trampled me as it jumped over a fallen, flaming tree. Holy fuck, I stammered while running in tow of the animals. I was right behind a wild buck when a root caught my foot, slamming me to the ground, knocking me unconscious. Hot. Very hot. Fire. My eyes sprung open to find my Levi jeans burning under intense orange flames. I ripped them off and stood up, sweating. I was surrounded by red-hot flames. There was only one path straight ahead that showed promise of an exit. I bolted for it, running faster than I ever had. I didn't stop running until I ran straight into the side of a vehicle. Disoriented, I stared at the vehicle with wide eyes. What the fuck was a vehicle doing out in the middle of a forest? The hot metal burned my bare thighs, making me yelp, manly-like, in pain. I flung myself back, landing on my ass. I stared at the car, realizing that someone had torched it. The low-hanging trees nearby most likely caught fire, sending the whole forest ablaze. A burning wood sign nearby caught my eye. It read, "Conservation of Clark." I tell you, I nearly shit myself rereading that sign. The car was the docks. The fire was set by me. The whole forest was alive with flame because of me. Now I'm trapped in this hellfire. Fucking irony, these judges were damn poetic. One of the tires popped loudly from the heat engulfing the vehicle. It pulled me back to reality and the danger of my current situation. Escape, Corey. Survive, damn it. I pushed myself to my feet and ran. The flames bit at my skin like a pack of wolves starving for their next meal. My silky hair caught fire. I tried to pat it out with my bare hands, but it only seared my fingers. Another root caught my foot and I fell to the ground. Fire was everywhere. The black smoke filled my lungs and I struggled to breathe. I lay in agony, surrounded by the fire. I stared up at the star-filled sky and decided to accept my fate. I lay motionless. Animals and people began to gather around the circle of flames surrounding me. They just watched me burn. A giant bear, deer, squirrels, wolves, and people of all ages stood around me. I could smell myself burning, my skin melting, my blood boiling. I thought maybe it was just my imagination. But as I burned, the entities around me began to burn too. They lost their fur, their hair, their flesh, turning red as they melted. They showed no signs of the pain I was experiencing. They simply watched and burned silently as I squirmed on the forest floor, dying. Why the fuck were they all here? It was only on my last breath that the realization occurred to me. These entities died the night I set that fire. The wildlife, the families, the campers, the hikers, they all died when I set that car ablaze. The empty eyes of my victims stared at me with hatred. You know, it was kind of nice having all those people at my funeral. I never would have guessed that I'd be cremated alive. I always figured I'd be buried in a hole somewhere when my enemies caught up to me. I took one long look at the souls I impacted and screamed. A real manly-like scream, of course. They screamed with me. The screams didn't even stop when I died there on the forest floor. I still hear the screams. I still smell the burning. It never stops. I guess I failed the judging process as I was never healed from the forest room. I spend my days burning, covered in ants who survive off my flesh. Battery acid is periodically poured over all my wounds. I live in a freezer for days at a time, stared at by the empty eyes of all those I murdered in the forest fire. The doc hangs out sometimes to remind me of his suffering. Boring, really, but at least it's someone to talk with. The pain is excruciating. But hey, regrets are for suckers. Become a channel member today for early access, bonus videos, and special emojis only available to members. Check out the description below or click the join button for more info. If you'd like another way to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/JordanGroupeHorror. As a patron, you'll get access to bonus videos and content. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward, and if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you which will be featured in a Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow. And see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.